So you've been watching basically picture with no sound, and I figured out the problem. So there we go. We got sound. Great. Glad to hear it. Now, what is going on today in life? Well, if you live in the United States of America, it's a political season. It's a presidential political season. A lot of opinions. A lot of people who want to do this and who want to do that. And ultimately, what we're having here is something serious turning into something that is just grossly perverse. Um, there is no reason why Mr. Donald Trump should not be president of the United States of America. The people who and this is developed. I mean, the show's title is "Living Well," but I'm going to go through the different layers, which involves politics, to get to the my principal point. Like as I was saying, there is no reason why Mr. Donald Trump cannot be president of the United States of America. His critics have no evidence that he's some kind of monster wearing a human flesh suit. Um, it's difficult for Mr. Donald Trump to change while in office because the public won't tolerate it. If you've been paying attention, you've realized that the United States Congress has been helping Obama spend a lot of the taxpayers' money. And they've been acting against the will of the people in their uh, obsession with illegal immigration reform. Now, let's put our emotions aside. Let's be mature individuals and look at this thing analytically. I was born in Mexico. I was born in Mexico to Mexican parents. When I was 4 years, I was illegally imported into this country. And at age 18, I received a letter asking me to clarify my immigration status or leave the country. As an individual, as a youngster, I knew of things, but when you're a little person, when you're a child, you don't understand the ramifications. It's when you become an adult that you actually are faced with what happens to a person. Now, under the circumstances, now, I'm not from the Mexican experience. I've said it before, I do not fly the Hispanic flag. I do not salute the Hispanic flag. I've been in this culture for a very long time. I've lived in the border city of El Paso, Texas for the majority of my life, for over 40 years. Wrong is wrong. Immoral is immoral. Unethical is unethical. If you do not want to believe in God, that's fine. But there's no way that you can justify people trespassing on individuals' private property. The United States of America is the private property of American citizens. And I was watching I've seen this before. I was watching a program about the border. Had to do with border patrol and violence that some border patrol agents have perpetuated on innocent individuals. And this obviously they made their case. I have nothing against it. I believe in human rights. Even though you got to enforce the law, you enforce the law like a decent human being, and you don't mistreat people. You don't kill people. You don't rape people. You behave like a human being, and you enforce the law, but you do it in a humane manner. Um, but the point was made in this video. This is a pursuit of a better life. And let me, an individual born in Mexico, raised in a border town, who hears people talking all day long. I'm not keep telling people, look, I've never been in a windowless office. I've always been outside. I've always done public contact. And in the last 2 years in the business that I went in, I've been directly in contact with the people of Mexico. And I know the hustle. I know what they're attempting to do. They're not coming to the United States of America pursuing a better life. They're coming into the United States of America because it's easy. They can get themselves a job for $8, $10. There's people who are hiring um, no papers. They know they're right. There's a full knowledge and awareness, knowingly and willingly hiring people they know have no right to be in the country. So you can come into this country and make money and then take it into Mexico. And then when you're in need of a little bit more money, then you come back into the country and you make a little bit more money and you go back into Mexico. From basically, basically something that is by business to get cheap labor, and that's all it is. They have crafted this idea that Mexico is bad and the people who are coming here are trying to leave that for a better life. So, from the immigration reform debate in the United States of America to a global debate about how members of society are supposed to work, function, how members of society are supposed to function, in order for there to be stability in that society. Most of us see what happens in the African nations. Most of us see what happens in the Middle East, in the Arab nations, in the Latin American nations. And we know there's corruption, and we know that there's evil people, and we know that there's people who idea about life is torturing and harming others. However, the majority happens to be the people. In the United States of America, America has, if I'm correct, a military of 1.5 million people. That means that there are 300 million people. Even if all you have is 100 million people, 100 million people should be able to win a competition between them and 1 million people. And I do feel bad for the people who are suffering in the African American nations, in the Middle East, in the Latin American nations, even in Mexico. But there are principles of life. There are standards of life that must be maintained in order for there to be social stability, societal stability. And we cannot be convenient. I keep hearing that there is approximately 97 million people who are not working, but it's still 97 million people who are eating, who are watching television, who are playing with their smartphones. Where's the money coming from? Well, the money's coming from you and I. Because if they're not working, somebody's taking care of them, and that somebody is the taxpayer. You can't have a society functioning under these dynamics. It's not over. It really is not over. We're still here. We still have to be here. And the way to have a society that allows for opportunities and advantages and for people to dream and to work hard to make their dreams come true is a society of individuals who are responsible. The situation in Mexico didn't just develop. The situation in Mexico as it is today really has nothing to do with corrupt politicians and ruthless drug dealers. It has nothing to do with those people. What it has to do is with the people of Mexico giving up on our society, giving up on their society, and turning it over to the corrupt politicians, the corrupt business people, and the murderous drug dealers. I was born in the country. I live in the border town. I don't stick my head in the sand. I challenge myself to be more intellectual than the average person. I can listen to the news and be brainwashed by the news. I can be emotional about the issue like everybody else. But it doesn't do anything. When the people of Mexico don't care enough about Mexico to take care of it, then they shouldn't be surprised that Mexico falls apart. Now, you can use the same standard on America. When the people of the United States of America don't care enough about America to take care of her, then America falls apart. I, as an individual, have to be responsible for my life. And when all members of society, whatever that society is, are responsible for their life, then you have a stable society. The majority should be politicians in line. The majority, when they do not purchase a product or a service, that business goes out of business. So you have control as long as you're being personally responsible. The problem is that we're not personally responsible. The problem is that we do whatever it is we want to do because we want to do it. And ultimately, what ends up happening is what you have today. Now, you're always going to have interest groups, always going to have special interest groups. But, and they have the right to exist. They don't have the right to drag America into the gutter with overspending. The biggest problem in the United States of America, regardless of what anybody else thinks, the biggest problem in the United States of America is the irresponsible spending by government, by the president, and by the Congress. That's the biggest problem in the United States of America. That the people in Congress now believe that they don't have to listen to the people. There are many people. There are different groups, different ideologies, different philosophies. In a democracy, and I'm not going to get into the debate, it's a constitutional republic or a democracy. I'll just say this one more time, and I don't care who understands it and who doesn't understand it. The governing organization of the United States is a constitutional republic. The governing organization of American society, of and every person who meets the constitutional requirements can vote. But how do you vote? Do you vote your conscience? Do you vote your emotions? Do you vote so your family and friends will continue to like you? What is it that can do your vote? I'm a linear analytical person. Obama had no administrative experience. Obama didn't even have a fast food job. He spent his whole life living off of other people, living off of his mother, living off of the people who financed his education. When he got married, he lived off his wife. Man had no money managing skills. Why the people of America elected a person who had no administrative skills whatsoever is beyond me. But what you have a country with a $20 trillion national debt and with a Congress and a president who cannot stop. Why be an honest person and pay your tax if those people in government are being irresponsible? Here in El Paso, Texas, they're being very irresponsible with the taxpayers' money. We're in the calendar year of 2016, and they happen to believe that a streetcar is necessary. It's costing $100 million, closing the roads, driving everybody crazy. This is insanity. There's a person in El Paso, Texas, who's a billionaire, with a B, billionaire. And the government of the city of El Paso gave this billionaire $100 million to build a ballpark and bring a AAA ball team to the city. Now, my simple brain says anybody who's got $1 billion can build his own ballpark and buy his own baseball team. They don't need a loan from the taxpayers. That's insanity. Here in El Paso, Texas, they want to build a $200 million Olympic-style swimming pool. Why? To attract people to come here to practice? Okay, maybe. I'm going to tell you it's not going to work. Doesn't matter. $100 million for the ballpark, $100 million for the streetcar, $200 million for the swimming pool. That's $400 million of the taxpayers' money. Just spending like there's no tomorrow. And ultimately, it's the taxpayer who's responsible for it. So, we as individuals, in our own unique way, with our own unique emotions and thoughts and sensations, whether we're pro God or anti God, have to realize that the things that we are paying attention to are false, are wrong. There's no way that Mr. Ted Cruz is going to be able to work with the Congress to get a balanced budget and to reduce the national debt. Mr. Ted Cruz is not liked or respected in the Senate. I have no idea what the House thinks of him, but we all know what the Senate thinks of him because we hear a lot of what the Senate thinks of him. Now, Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, people like them, who are they to tell the American people that their opinion doesn't matter? They are there, people, and they are there to do the will of the majority. When earlier articles, when I used to meditate on earlier articles, standards was that you can always count on the majority to be good and decent. You're going to have a minority who are criminals, who are hustlers, who want to take advantage of their neighbor. You're always going to have that. But if you have the majority, and I'm not talking about a 51, 49% majority, that's a poor majority. That's where you have no power to work. You need people to grow up and understand that government does not exist to solve their personal problems. In this modern industrial complex, you need to get your early education and you need to get through a university education. An associate is not going to help you much in the marketplace, and even a bachelor's may not help you that much in the marketplace. But that's the reality. There's other reality. There's the reality that you can save and buy a business. There's the reality that you can go into the military. There's the reality of well, it's not manual labor, but of working hard, of being a welder or working in an oil field. It's but you have to understand that you have to do something. Living off of unemployment, really, you have very little respect for your neighbors if you're giving yourself a 3-year unemployment insurance vacation. Unemployment is for you to get a job. It's giving you an opportunity to get a job. It's not a 3-year vacation. And I have to pay for it. I have to pay the taxes for it. And I have to pay for what you're not contributing to society. And that's the basic point. No, if I lived in neighborhoods where the majority are African Americans on welfare, I could not say that they are the problem. I live in a city where the majority of Hispanics are welfare recipients. They didn't work. They're healthy. But when you're raised in El Paso, Texas, you're raised with a certain mindset, certain things that get into your psyche and that move you towards the direction of wanting, desiring to be a subject of the state. It's a lot easier. Let's be realistic. It's a lot easier to have somebody else pay the bills than you paying the bills. That's the reality of it. It's not healthy for society. It doesn't help anybody. The democratic way is what this country has been managed under the last 7 years of Obama. And who can look at America today and say Obama was a positive contribution to society? Because if he was, you sort of need to convince me that he was, because America doesn't look successful. America looks like a country where people have given up, where a great majority is too traumatized to deal with the basics of life. How in the world can you maintain a society? How can you maintain an American civilization when people have decided that it's better to pretend to be sick than to actually be personally responsible? There's and the reason why that the Congress can get away with what they're getting away with and the president can get away with what the president is getting away with is because of all those citizens who, as long as they're getting their piece of the pie, they could care less what happens to the country. The people coming into this country could care less what happens to the United States of America. Once they burn America down, there's Canada. There'll always be another place for them to go. They don't invent, they're not good people. They're not honorable people. They're not people who take care of anything. They literally are a plague of rats that start eating and don't stop eating until there isn't anything else to eat anymore. If you look at humanity, you understand that there are just very bad people in the world. The social dynamics of Mexico are unique. It's easy for me to understand why you have Middle Easterners calling us infidels and wanting to kill us just by having access to the mindset of the people of Mexico. People justify their immorality. And they justify their own immorality because that's the convenient way to do things. It actually takes work and effort to be. You have to live what you can produce. As long as you can steal from your neighbor, you can steal from all your neighbors. But if you're a person who, for whatever reason, didn't pay attention in school, don't have any employable skills, you're not going to fare well in this modern world. I don't mind the modern world. I mind the abuse of business. Everybody would mind the abuse of business. There's a lot of garbage in the world. But the mindset in the people of Mexico is because they're corrupt, I can be corrupt. That's how people from Mexico think. Because the politicians are corrupt, I can be corrupt. Because the business people are corrupt, I can be corrupt. Because the drug dealers are corrupt, I can be corrupt. You come across information, media products, where people say, well, if I didn't do this, they would kill me. No, sorry. Someone who's outside the culture may believe that. But it's so obvious that they're there because of the money that they make. This is the niche that they have found. Whether it's participating in holding people hostage until the family member pays to free them, bringing people in this country, bringing drugs into this country, growing marijuana in the mountainsides across America. It has nothing to do with it. If I don't do it, they'll kill me. There's a lot to do with it that they enjoy it, that it's easy money, they laugh about it, they praise and worship drugs, violence, and nothing has to do with the fact that they're attempting to get a better life. There's nothing about that. And the media that is hounding Donald Trump is complicit. Because they're the ones going around telling people that it's because of this and it's because of that. It has nothing to do. But what they're telling you has nothing to do with reality. Plain and simple. The reality is that we have become very ugly human beings. One of the last revelations after meditating with God is, if we really try to be God-like, all of us, there wouldn't be the things that there are in the world. There wouldn't be murder. There wouldn't be rape. And what influences human behavior? Everybody thinks that they know what influences human behavior. I believe in God, therefore that other guy has to exist. And I do believe that every day he's whispering softly into people's ears, trying to seduce them to disobedience from God. So that influences behavior. How you interact with people, social interaction influences people, wanting people to like you, the emotions that come from human interaction influences the attitudes that people develop. The information you're exposed to teaches you how you see other people behave. The philosophies that you hear on television and radio and movies and web pages, that teaches you. That contributes to what you believe, and what you believe contributes to what you feel, and what you feel contributes to how you behave. Back when I started writing, around 2003, one of the ways that I would settle debates with people is just with a very simple question. And that question is, if your philosophy of life is great, why isn't your life that great? So what you find in modern society, if you pay attention, what you're finding today is that even though people have had all this freedom to eat drugs, to drink alcohol, to fornicate at will, there's a lot of personal dissatisfaction. There's a lot of depression. There's a lot of anxiety in the individual. And no matter how hard these people laugh at how they're, living the vida loca and just, flaunting their sin in the face of God, if you sit down and talk to them, you realize you're talking to very miserable people. I see it every day. I'm the guy that drives people home after they went out partying and they didn't find what they thought they were going to find. Very sad people. For me, life has never been difficult. I think we make life difficult when we obsess on things. Life is very basic. Life is very basic. The ideas in our modern society, make us believe that we need this and we need that. We need a $700 iPhone. We need a 60-inch television. We need a Hummer. We need to have 15, 20 different sexual partners in a month. People are living these lives, attempting to live these lives. Married people are attempting to live these lives. And when it's all said and done, no matter how much people consume, they're sad, they're miserable, they're suffering from anxiety, they're suffering from depression. Therefore, ultimately, what people believe is correct can't be correct if you have so much angst, so much hurt. And it's interrelated. I told you that I was going to go from politics to the real issue. The reason we have the politics that we have is because we have the people that we have, and the people that we have are people filled with are people who cannot be happy no matter how much they consume. And if you try to tell them that, they'll argue with you. One of the reasons I don't like talking to people is because people will argue with you. I have a very disciplined philosophy of life. It took years to develop it. It took formal study in psychology. I didn't get to where I wanted to get to, but at least I got to a bachelor's. And and I've seen it. I've seen very distraught individuals. I think one of the worst cases, and not an official case, is in employment capacity. Just a person who I talked to, way into their 70s, trying to convince me that he's living a good life, going out into the bars, getting drunk, and trying to find women to come home and, oh, here we go again. Well, if the picture's frozen, it's frozen. At least I still have volume. Okay, but here's this person who had 7 years of life, no spouse, no children, no grandchildren. If he dies, I don't think those women he's trying to seduce are going to come to his funeral. And to have lived that life every single day, I think that's a very sad existence. But he's not alone. Before I met him, I used to meet a lot of, and around here in El Paso, Texas, it's old Mexican men. And four or five of them would try to tell me that they were not doing anything wrong, leaving the wife at home and going to Mexico to carouse and drink. I think one person, I answered his question very clearly. I told him, yeah, you are wrong. You're hurting the person who you married. Supposedly, you love this person. How can you love a person if you're hurting them like that? So, what's the answer? This is going to be a daily, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Probably should have cut the sound out, but oh well. We need better people. The way to have a better society is to get better people. The way to have better politics is to get better people. There's nothing wrong with Donald Trump. Studying the behavior of Mr. Ted Cruz, there's a lot wrong with Mr. Ted Cruz. There's a lot wrong with Mr. Glenn Beck. I just have a little bit of respect for Mr. Mark Levin, but the fact that he's gone all in with Mr. Ted Cruz, I don't have that much respect for him anymore. Ted Cruz is a political hustler. Somebody needs to stop and ask him, why is it you want to be president of the United States of America when you don't have 40 years business experience, when you don't have a business degree from a prestigious university, where you don't have $10 billion of worth, of wealth, when you have been financed by Goldman Sachs and other Wall Street. Yeah, I'm not against the Wall Street. I'm not against people who have money. Good for them. Abuse. Yeah, I'm always going to be against abuse. Being so obsessed with making money that you don't care if your employees are dying on the job. Yeah, that's always going to get my attention. And selling products that are lethal and can harm the consumer, that's always going to get my attention. But other than that, dream your dream and work hard at making it come true. I'm not going to argue with you. That's a good thing. But there's things that Mr. Ted Cruz has done, like supporting amnesty. The person who has endorsed him in Wisconsin supported amnesty. Mr. Ted Cruz was for the Trade Pact Authority or whatever that thing was, and then he was against it. Now he's against amnesty. It's a political hustler. He's talking about Donald Trump, what Donald Trump believed back then. I've been watching, I've been paying attention, watching videos of Mr. Donald Trump being interviewed and talking about what he's talking about today 20 years ago. What has Mr. Donald Trump done? People have attacked him and he's defended himself in his own unique way. This is not a channel to promote, even though I will state clearly, I have no problem endorsing Mr. Donald J. Trump for President of the United States of America. You need someone who knows how to administrate. You need someone who knows how to write budgets. You need someone who's stronger than the Congress And because Donald Trump has the majority support of Americans, he's stronger than the Congress. Ted Cruz is not stronger than the Congress. Ted Cruz will not be able to accomplish anything with the other than going along to get along. He can do that, but he will be telling the Congress, you're going to stop illegal immigration reform. You're going to stop amnesty. The Congress is going to tell Ted Cruz, you will support amnesty. Someone like Donald Trump, you just don't force into any position. A lot has to do with his wealth, but the majority of the reason that Donald Trump is strong enough to put the Congress in its place is because he has the support of the majority of the people of America, which doesn't mean anything to Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell. And let's get this straight right here and right now. Your ambition to be president, Mr. Paul Ryan, is never going to happen. You have offended the majority of conservatives in America. That's a very large majority that's never going to vote for you, and without their votes, you're never going to be president. In fact, in your little district, somebody's about to be the reason that you're no longer going to be in office, which is a good thing. When the politicians decide that they're better than the people and that they don't have to listen to the people, then it's time for those politicians to be sent home permanently, forever. I don't understand why it is that Paul Ryan thinks that he's something special when he's going against the majority of the conservatives in America. Who's going to vote for him? Democrats? I mean, everybody's conditioned. Everybody's more or less brainwashed to believe that their political party is the correct political party. I don't support Republicans anymore. I do believe in the principles of success that help an individual succeed and help a nation succeed. In order to have a better society, we need to have better people. People who want to take advantage of their neighbors, who want to be lazy, who want to be irresponsible, are not good people for any society. And again, it's not over. It isn't over. When Mr. Donald Trump becomes president, everything starts. It's not the end of something, it's the beginning. It's the beginning of writing budgets, of paying down the national debt, of stopping irresponsible spending, of starting the conversation with allies about a unified, equal partnership in dealing with terrorism. It's not about America doing it on her own. It's not about Americans taking the full brunt of the war. It's about a partnership that has to exist where nations of good and decent people have to equally participate. And we're going to have to just admit it. We're going to have to get our hands on reality and realize that the problem are the people who follow the Quran. You're just going to have to admit it, whether we want to or not. Because you cannot. Sometimes I stop myself in thought. But there was this person who I don't consider all that, but supposedly he wrote The Art of War. I believe his name is Sun Tzu. Maybe back then, this kind of observations were considered cerebral, intellectual, but they don't impress me much. But he did say that in order to win, you must understand who your enemy is. We see from governments across the world, in America, that they're trying to pretend that the enemy isn't the enemy. The enemy is the enemy. The enemy are the people who follow the Quran. The enemy are people who, instead of talking, use violence. We saw it with Hitler. I mean, you can go down the history. Pick a person: Napoleon, Hitler, Genghis Khan, Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar. Just pick a person of history, and they all followed the same thing. They were all after the same goal: dominance, controlling people. They were all after money. I mean, if you want to understand, clearly all after money, and they need to be dealt with. If they are not dealt with, just have a very good look at Mexico. Mexico is a perfect example of what happens when a people of a society do not deal with the bad people who are in positions of authority. And again, it's not over. I'm going to go ahead and close, but you get from a citizen, from an individual, healthy, happy individual who knows how to live a balanced life, who knows how to pursue what's actually good in life. You get a citizen that can make very good choices when it comes to choosing political leaders. And you also get a citizen who's engaged and involved, and who the members of Congress and the president actually fear. There aren't that many, aren't that many philosophies to follow. The news media will say, oh, well, you have to do this, or you have to feel this, or you have to think this. Who are they? Most of them don't have university degrees. The only reason they're there is because they're a pretty face and they know how to read what's written in front of them. Why are they setting standards? Who are actors to set societal standards? I used to think, if somebody put me in charge of forming a committee to set societal standards, what kind of people would I invite to this committee? Well, I wasn't sure of the people who I would invite to the committee, but I was pretty sure of who I would not invite to the committee. Hillary Clinton, I would not invite. Barack Hussein Obama, I would not invite. Chris Matthews, I would not invite. Megyn Kelly, I would not invite. Bill O'Reilly, I would not invite. Because I've heard them. I've heard their opinions and their attitudes, and they're not productive when you're trying to build standards for society that will maintain that society strong. When you're creating falsehoods about individuals to help corporations, think about it this way. Who employs Bill O'Reilly? Well, you can say Fox Corporation. Yes, directly. Indirectly are all the people who advertise on the Bill O'Reilly show. And you can go down the line of all talk show hosts, every single last one of them. If they do not keep their advertisers happy, they don't have a show. And the majority of the problem is the greed from many corporations. Again, I'm not against the free market. I'm not against success. I'm not against corporations having wealth. I don't happen to believe that because they have money, I can't get any money. That's not my opinion. That may be the opinion of other people, but that's not my opinion. It's unfortunate. I think one of the things that is very unfortunate in society, and I am going to close. I said I was going to close. I'm going to close. But I think one of the unfortunate realities of our current society is that people think that there's only one reality. And that reality is what I call the modern industrial complex. People actually think that if they don't get a job as a janitor for a hospital, there's nothing else they can do. And we see levels of society falling apart. I understand teachers don't want to be teachers. I understand why nurses don't want to be nurses. I understand why police officers don't want to be police officers. I was telling somebody that I talked to, and I'm not gonna mention names. No reason to make their lives difficult. But I was in the police department here in El Paso, Texas, the main office, and there were some, you know, police officers and other government types, government employees talking, and one of them mentioned to another one, "Hey, you're almost going to get, your retirement." Is where the conversation was going. And the person said, "Oh no, I'm leaving here at such time." Like, why? Why? You should just hang out. It's 2 years. It's not that much. And they go, "Oh no, the corruption. The corruption here is too bad." I understand why people don't be involved in the reality that they're involved in, but that's one reality. One of the greatest things about America is that with freedom, with liberty, with independence, people can create their own reality. Think of everything that is new in the human society because of innovation and creativity. Very little innovation and creativity comes out of Russia. Why? Because it's a controlled system. America, where freedom and liberty and independence are supposed to be the law of the land, supposed to, because it doesn't appear that way anymore. But you can create a lot when you're a free person. You can observe, you can look, you can analyze, you can evaluate. I can use this resource, I can use that resource, I can build this. And have your own reality. But again, the convenience factor. It's better to live off of a neighbor. It's better to live off of 10,000 neighbors than actually take personal responsibility for an individual's life. So again, I'm going to close it. When I started writing, I believe I started writing about psychology. And the reason was that I don't believe that people need to suffer. I don't believe that people need to have their lives overwhelmed with depression or anxiety. I understand what can happen to a person. I understand the most extreme toxic events that can happen to a person and the effect that they can have on that person's personal psychology. Even so, I believe that every single one of us has the ability to help ourselves with our depression and with our anxiety. So I started writing articles about how to empower people to manage their depression, manage their anxiety. And the first conclusion that I came to was that we are hurting ourselves with all our negative thoughts. Because all those negative thoughts do is lead us to hopelessness and helplessness. When I was talking to about a month ago, a lot of people from Cuba started showing up where I work. I work near Port of Entry, and I had the opportunity to talk to some of them. And one of them actually told me that people in Cuba are so traumatized that they no longer believe and they no longer can function. And I remember that learned helplessness, which is basically conditioned fear. You start to convince yourself that there's nothing you can do. Now, let me repeat that. You start to convince yourself that there's nothing you can do. You start looking at the reality and you think that that's the only reality. You forget that you are a creative being and you can build with your innovation and creativity. So we are harming ourselves with our negative thoughts. Many of us go beyond just being negative, saying this will never work, that will never work, I'll never get this job, I'll never graduate from college. Some people harm themselves with that, but there's people who harm themselves even worse when they're walking around saying, "I'm stupid, I'm an idiot, I'm a dummy, I'm a loser, I'm ugly, I'm fat. That complicates the issue even worse. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to start leaving that negative attitude alone. And you need to do what I tell people to do is okay, when you say a negative, switch it and turn it into a positive. The first thing on your agenda, if you want to live a different life, if you don't want to hurt, if you don't want to have pain, if you don't want to suffer, is to stop being your own worst enemy. Now, being positive, you know, has a lot of different meanings to a lot of different people. When I say being positive, I just mean, believe in yourself, have confidence in yourself. You know, you use your smart brain to build. Um, it's I'm gonna go down the list here. Positive thoughts, hopeful thoughts, and realistic thoughts. There's no reason to disrespect what you have. You have something. You have your ability to think, organize, plan, and act. You can evaluate your environment. You can evaluate the city that you live in and what job resources there are and use them. You may want to be something else, but if there's a job that will pay you, give you a purpose, help you pay your bills, feel good about yourself, that you're accomplishing something, you cannot box yourself into one reality. You cannot say, I only want to be a nurse and that's it. The reality of life may be that you were never meant to be a nurse and you're never going to be a nurse. It's unhealthy to box yourself in and say, well, if I can't be this, then I just don't want anything. So it's being positive, hopeful, being realistic. And realism is enjoying what we have, being grateful for what we have. And then I was meditating with God, and He keeps putting this word in my mind. That word is fun. Life is for having fun. It, it is sad how many people know how to have fun. You look at children, they have no problem whatsoever about how to have fun. When they have a problem is when a bunch of adults start yelling at them to be quiet and stop playing. Then they have a problem because they can't have fun. But the human existence is to have fun, healthy fun. Not that stuff I was talking about before, going out to bars and drinking and trying to find as many people you can to fornicate with. That's unhealthy. You don't want to believe it, don't believe it. Do what you want to do. What do I care? Now, how do you get to fun? One of the terms that I came across is simple, healthy pleasures of life. Conversations with friends, joking around with friends, interacting with family members. There's literature, there's music. TV isn't all that bad. You can take walks in the park, you can ride a bicycle, you can go to the mountains, you can go canoeing. I had to add healthy, simple pleasures of life because I realized that people who are harming themselves think that they're living healthy lives. People who use marijuana think that they're having a healthy life, and they're not. They're poisoning themselves. They're turning themselves into zombies. I don't need a drug to enjoy life. I'll drink a beer or two, but I don't need to be drunk to enjoy life. Life has a lot of great things to offer, but if you have the negative mindset, you cannot see the good in life. Reading a book, listening to jazz, exercising, cleaning your home. As you walk through life, hopefully you marry somebody who's a simple, healthy pleasure in life, who's a companion, who's a friend, who's someone who can tell you jokes. Your children definitely should be a simple, healthy pleasure in life. You'd have joy in having children, raising them, loving them, teaching them well, looking forward to the day when they're complete adults, and the complete adult that they are is a good and decent person. If you pay attention to the messages of life, the way they're sold in the media, you'll believe that there's nothing good in life. And that's part of a lot. That's a big part of mental illness in across the world. And there's no reason for people to be suffering. We have the ability to manage our own emotions, put them in their place, figure out what we would like to do, and then do it. We have to work. We've always had to work. But there's a time for work, and then there's a time to play. And you can have fun at work as long as it's respectful fun and the job is getting done. There's a lot of people who go to work to have fun, but it's to hurt others, to attack their coworkers, and to not do the job. I was at a gas station trying to get gas. Not that hard. You put the card in, you take the card out, you punch a couple of numbers, and gas should flow. And the little clerk comes out like, "What's the problem, sir?" Like I'm doing something wrong. I told her, you know what? This isn't that hard. I'm going to go to a gas station that works, and I'm going to give them my money. I think we all want to live in a peaceful, polite society that functions. We got to be positive people. When you leave that negative stuff alone and you walk towards the positive and you become a healthier person, you realize everything that you have built has value and you have to take care of it. And part of taking care of that is being on top of politicians, because if you leave the politicians alone, they'll turn to the dark side and they'll do a lot of things that will harm you. See, that's point A to point B. Politics, personal responsibility. Healthy citizens making good choices. Ted Cruz is not a good choice. Kasich is not a good choice. The Congress has to be purged of a lot of bad, corrupt, morally corrupt individuals. And Mitch McConnell. It's going to be hard, but can't say that it's not worth it, because it is worth it, because we're still here, we're still going to be tomorrow, and the children of today deserve a future that they can dream in, and they can work hard to build their dreams, make their dreams come true. And the people who give those children that opportunity are us. Doesn't matter how tired we are, we're the only ones that can ensure that there is a future for these children. A future free of terrorism and a future filled with opportunities and advantages. That's my close. Thank you for watching. I wish you well.